Hello everyone and welcome back. Today let's go over the most beloved dungeon by all of us, Cathedral of the Eternal Night, and how to pull it in Mythic Plus. The first thing we need to talk about is that you will not have any problems getting any of the enemy forces, and if you see here, there's one pull that runs to you at the very beginning and then one pull over to your right. They are two separate pulls, so keep that in mind. And when you're going to do your third pull, you need to look behind you because there will be a mini boss activated with that third pull. One other thing to note when running down this corridor, always stick to the wall and not to the balcony side because pats can fly down and stick to you. Now you do see that as soon as we get that pull going, that mini boss does pull. And this mini boss is the reason for a ton of deaths in this dungeon. What he does is he faces in a direction, starts casting Shadow Wave, and you just need to move out of the way. If you do not move out of the way, that frontal cone ability is going to do a ton of damage and it can one-shot you in higher keys. So here you see it again, Shadow Wave being cast, frontal cone ability, just move out of the way and you'll be fine. If you do happen to go down to Shadow Wave, just release and run back. The entrance is like 10 feet away, so you'll be fine. So if you get past that mini boss with minimal casualties, you're already on your way to a good run. Again, make sure you stick to the wall. You do see there was an ad picked up here. Every now and then they will fly a little bit closer to the middle, but if you stick to the wall, you'll minimize how many of these ads you get. One other thing about all these dread hunters, these guys on the gargoyle, is they will cast a fear and they do frontal swipe abilities. So interrupt the fears and face them away from the group. And again, there's not that much skipping in this dungeon, not very many things you can do to bypass mobs, but that's okay because it gets us just the right amount of enemy forces completed. One last thing to note about this dungeon is you need to keep your interrupt handy for a lot of these pulls, and your stuns will also come in handy as well. So anytime you see anyone casting anything that's mending, you do want to interrupt that. And all of these green circles on the ground, they actually do give a haste buff, so it's beneficial to stand in them, but they also do damage to you, so be careful. So if you are DPS, you can stand in them, get more haste, but you will be taking some damage. Now after a few pulls down this corridor, you will see some stairs over on the right hand side. You will go up those stairs. There will be one additional pull, and for the next few pulls you have a chance of having one of these temptresses in that pull, or a succubus. You need to keep an eye on her because she can mind control someone in your party, which can lead to a wipe. So anytime one of those temptresses or succubuses will cast, make sure she gets stunned or interrupted just to keep your group from being mind controlled. Also, you do see this pat right here. He does move back and forth, so you don't actually need to pull him. You can just kill this group by itself and then run across the bridge. There are a few pats in this area too. They are temptresses, so if you do see them, just avoid them and make sure you keep them interrupted and stunned when they do cast. Also, with these Strangled Vine lashers, make sure you break that tether when they do latch onto you. But you do see here that Alluring Aroma is the cast that you do need to interrupt. Make sure you clear all of the trash in this room, because if you don't, when you pull the boss and he summons ads, all of this trash will come with it as well. For this boss fight, remember, if any of the ads fixates you, don't let them get within melee range of you, and try to DPS them all down as quickly as possible. As for the tanks, make sure you have active mitigation and a small cooldown popped for every timber smash that goes out on you. And when the succulent lashers spawn underneath the boss, make sure you pick them up as a tank, but are not within melee range when they finish their cast. Right after this boss fight, you can actually bypass all of this trash by just letting the pats run their own course. They will split apart. You can run right through here, jump over the balcony, and you don't have to do any of this trash. At the top of these stairs, you do want to pick one side, whether it's left or right. Just clear one of the sides and kill all of these scavengers and imps on both of them. Now a few of them will throw some arcane books on the ground, and if you can, DPS those first because they will summon bigger arcane mobs. But you do see here we didn't split our DPS, they finish their cast time and become arcane mobs. Now after this area, you can use all of these bookshelves to LOS these pulls together, and that's really what you want to do. Pull one of the groups, hide behind a bookshelf, make sure they all come together and DPS them down. Now one thing you do want to do is DPS all of the books as quickly as possible, especially the Everlasting Silence books, because they do throw a big AoE on the ground where no one can cast inside of it. Also, with any of these imps, they normally cast their Fell Bolt in sequence, so you get hit by 5 or 6 imps at the same time, so use your magic mitigation when that cast is about to finish. And the last thing to note about this room is that with the Gazer, you don't want to kill him right in the middle of the room. If he goes down in the middle of the room, he summons the boss and you'll start the event as soon as he goes down. So pull the Gazer off to some edge of the room and take him down there. Remember to face away when he finishes casting Blinding Glare, or it can one-shot you. And then with this boss, remember tank him in the middle, run behind a bookshelf when he stares at you, and DPS the ads immediately. Anytime he crashes into a bookshelf, the books are a much bigger threat than the bosses. Now with this first pull of these spiders, this middle spider, the Orb Caster, will periodically summon a Fell Orb and she will face a certain direction. This Fell Orb will go in the direction facing away from her and deal a ton of damage. So if you are standing in between her and the orb, you need to make sure you move out of the way or that orb will kill you. With Nal Asha, the spider mini-boss, the biggest thing to worry about is when she blinks or disappears and reappears, she will face a certain direction, and she will be casting a Frontal Cone ability that is a poison ability that in higher level keystones can also one-shot you. So as soon as you see her blink and face a certain direction, make sure you're not in a Frontal Cone. Here we see the Vanish, and you see that she faces that direction, and that's all of the trash and all of the pulls for this dungeon. After this is just 2 bosses back to back. For these 2 bosses, remember, for both bosses, face them away from the group because they do have a Frontal Cleave ability. And for the very last boss, remember to DPS the illusions during the illusion phase and to not get hit by any of the orbs being cast during that phase. But that wraps up all of the pulls and the run through for Cathedral of the Eternal Night. The pulls themselves aren't as tricky as other dungeons. There aren't specific mobs you can skip and pull, but it's all about managing the trash that does come out, so interrupting, stunning, and keeping them under control, while avoiding all of the frontal cleaves that happen in this dungeon. So remember, don't stand in front of any mobs, keep your stuns and your interrupts handy, and you might come out of this dungeon alive. But as always, if you'd like to support the show, go ahead and visit my Patreon down below. I am also going to start streaming on Twitch, so go ahead and give me a follow there. And as always, good luck out there.